We wait for Rick or give him a couple more minutes or,
He did say that he would be joining us.
okay. Oh, there he is. Well, we might as well begin then. I want to welcome everyone to tonight's special meeting of the Rockland Sewer Commission, May 6, 2021. This open meeting is broadcast live and recorded on WRPS for playback. Attending tonight's meeting from the Board of Commissioners, Dan Duras, myself, Chuck Hession, Keith Natassia, the new superintendent, Dave Taylor, the interim, and Rick Katish, the Suez manager. What I want to do before we begin, I know there's been a number of meetings the past few months, and I want to clear up that the only reason for that is we had to go through that hiring process, the interviews, the attempts to select a candidate, and then shingle mill. I do not foresee, I don't really like meetings, so I don't see this going to be a monthly thing. This was an anomaly tonight. So, I do plan on keeping it once a month. And next month, it was brought that it may be an inconvenience to Rick, your guys, and to others that the 7 o'clock meeting time might be present a problem. I want you to know the reason I'm going, or I pursued that, was just as a matter of transparency, if you want. We're going to be talking about a lot of money between the CWMP and the potential upgrade if it comes, and then SSES work. So I didn't want anyone saying they weren't aware of the funding or what have you. I was attempting to possibly get more of the residents who work during the day to tune in when we are talking about those issues. So I want to put it on the agenda for next meeting, which is the 19th. And if you want to discuss it, go back to the days, daytime meetings. By all means, we can do that. There's nothing stopping us. Like I said, I was just doing it as a convenience towards some of the residents. With that said, the reason for tonight's meeting, it's totally unexpected, although I didn't expect it to happen until to July, to be honest with you. We received a request for information from the EPA, and I'm going to share the screen, some slides. So hold on one second here. Let me see. What I'll put up is this one. As you know, back in 2006, we received an administrative order for flow violation and a few other issues from the EPA. There were repeated flow violations, and to comply with an administrative order, you have to file a plan of compliance to the EPA, and they accept it. No, I didn't want to put the whole thing up. I just wanted to show you that we did comply with that in February 2007. And it had a number of what we proposed to be corrective actions in response to that. What they sent us, received, again, is what's called a request for information. This is usually a prerequisite for further information. Now, what I thought they were going to go after is totally not what tripped us up. Now, when you receive any kind of EPA order or DEP order, when your permit comes up for renewal, that order usually remains open until it's closed. Well, we never closed it, and through no fault of our own, it just remained open. So because it was an open administrative order, when your permit comes up, it automatically has to go to the EPA compliance group. And the EPA compliance groups pulls out that corrective actions and start going down the line. Now, what I thought they would get us on was our flows. And what surprised me was this, where I marked in yellow to our corrective action. They're saying that, where are we here? The AO, the corrective actions required the town to submit annual reports by January 31st of each year, detailing actions taken during the prior calendar year. And what they're saying is that, where is it? That, however, our records do not indicate that the town has submitted annual reports. Well, I asked for what we had sent in to the EPA after they made that call, and the reports are there. And I think what it was just a clerical error on our part, where they went to probably, I'm guessing, Mass DEP. They had to go to, I think, both, but I know they had to go to the EPA. And from what this is telling me, and where we have the physical copies of them, my only guess, and I'll look into it tomorrow, is that it went to DEP rather than EPA. But that's what tripped going into our corrective actions. Once they get into it, there's no backing off. They go through absolutely everything there is in there, and they look for anything. They picked up that we have violated our discharge permit 27 months over the past 5 years, which equates to 45%. The next two issues on the violated maximum and weekly average limitations for ammonia for 3 months and aquatic toxicity, I'm willing to bet they are during high water events, and if anything, that's just it's not, I don't want to say a slap in the wrist, because I don't want this perceived as anything light, because it's really not. What the problem is, and I'm working with them now, is we received this Friday. Well, they give you 30 calendar days of receipt of this letter to respond to some information. And if you don't, well, this is the typical verbiage that's in any order, be it admin or consent from the EPA, or for that fact, DEP. And what we should have been done is that once you file that corrective actions, that's considered a modification to your permit, and you have to meet those requirements. Now, these requests for information, I've dealt with them in the past. They can be pretty intense labor-wise to get the information they want. Now, what they're going to be focused on, and I'll show you in a moment, is our I&I. And I put this up last time at our last meeting when we were going through the proposed moratorium issues. EPA, DEP has a set definition on what they accept is I&I inflow and infiltration. Anything that they're looking for I&I has to meet what's in those verbiage. Sump pumps, which they don't mention, is also part of that, illegal sump pumps. And I only put that on there just now is because somebody brought that up at the last minute, at the last meeting, at the public forum portion. And I really didn't think that was the time to address sump pumps, even though they are part of our corrective actions with the EPA. Now, as I said, they're going to give us 30 days to pull these things together. Then went to the Board of Selectmen, town manager, Dave, as the interim superintendent at the time. Keith has a copy, and I believe Rick has a copy. Now, this is, I just want to quickly go over. I don't want to really go into it in any detail right now, unless you people, if anybody has questions regarding it. What they're going to look for is we have to provide them with summaries, of each and every bit of studies or work we have done since 2006, when the administrative order was issued, to identify sources of I&I that enters the town collection system. Now, you can't just say, yeah, we did it, here's the date. the way it works is, okay, for example, on this one here would go, this is just one example. Part of it's going to be our SSES studies. Well, we created it, we had SSES studies, I believe, in 07, 08, and 13. We have one ongoing now, which doesn't come into effect on this order. Those SSES studies, sewer system evaluation studies is what that stands for, where they do camera work, dye work, smoke work, whatever, to find and identify sources. Well, they identify those sources, and in an ideal world, you have to go back and formulate a plan to remove them. Now, what they're going to look for is those reports and what those sources identified, plus any other report, study that we have done. Now, what they will do is they will look at the monies we have collected since 2006 that was supposed to go to I&I funding, and we have to account for that, all that money, pretty much every cent of it. That money can come from the fees we collect, come from grants. Well, there were no grants involved. It could come from allocations from town hall at the town meeting. Like, for instance, this past one, we requested $100,000 for I&I. Well, that $100,000, we got a detail to the T where that went to. And they're looking for it to go to I&I. And what we promised them is that we'd put that to removing, for every 1 gallon of wastewater we admitted to the system, we would eliminate 11 gallons. That's the term for us issuing permits. And we have to abide by that, whether, like say for a municipal building that doesn't pay fees, well, that's up to the town. We have to come up with the money to address that flow, because that flow is still going through the system. They do not care how that flow gets in, it's flow. And that has to meet that 11-to-1 requirement. If, for instance, any of those fees or monies went to repairs, that don't count. They don't want to hear it. They're going to say, like, say, for example, I'm going to throw out a number, because I have no idea, because I don't know what the number is. We're going to say we received $1 million in I&I money over all these years. It's a lot more than that. But we have to show work orders, receipts, labor reports, contracts, scopes of work, that will prove that we spent that on I&I. If we can't produce manifest labor reports, receipts, contracts, scopes of work, in the eyes of the APA and MassDEP, that work did not happen. And that's going to be a problem. So I'm hoping that everyone could appreciate the intense man hours and labor hours that are going into gathering all these reports, because it's just not a matter of picking up the documentation. Now we've got to find the documentation to support it, and the documentation to support the support. So it's a ton of work. For instance, I did one for my past employer. I did one for a client two years ago, and I ended up with those boxes that printer paper come into, like the big boxes. Going back 3 years, we probably had 10 boxes of supporting data. And when that bad data gets in, we got to catalog it, we got to inventory it, and we got to publish it so they can come in and just go through it, boom, 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 boom. And if we can't support it, it doesn't happen. They don't want to hear it. And again, the big thing on this is that you really can't. I speak like a typical Irishman. I'm sorry, you can't bullshit your way through this. It has to be factual, it has to be honest, and it has to be right to the point. And I will do that. Another one of those corrective actions we put in was a moratorium on new users. Well, number 2 is a doozy. We got to list sewer connections and additional volumes of flow for every permit since 2006 sewer connection moratorium, and we got to list all our rejections by the town since 2006. So for every permit we issued, we have to find out how much flow that allowed, do the 11-to-1 ratio, and show that we took out that 11-to-1 volume to have allowed that permit. That's basically it in a nutshell, and that's fact. Keith,
Yep.
so far have I said anything misleading?
No, it's factual.
Okay.
Yep.
So when we look at number 2, here's another doozy. And you can just know the answer to this one, most of you. We got to give an itemized accounting of gallons removed. So if we allowed them to come in and we took fees for that 11-to-1, we got to absolutely account for every dollar of those fees in accordance with the 2006 administrative order that we promised them to offset those new requirements, to allow them to come into the system. We have to come up with a complete accounting and the disposition of those funds per that. If we didn't spend it on I&I, where did it go? We not only have to, if we can't say, okay, we allowed 100,000 gallons, we can only account for 20,000 gallons, $20,000 worth of I&I. They want to know, okay, what did you spend the rest of that I&I money on? We have to prove it. And a project's implementing quantities of flow removed using those fees. So in our case, a lot of instances, we did do I&I work, but in many instances, due to the age of our equipment, we were forced to tap into I&I fees to pay for repairs. They're not going to want to hear it. They're not going to, and they will not accept it under any circumstances. That's going to be a big problem. That's why, if you remember in the past meetings, I was sweating out that fact that we've never done it. We were going to get caught because the EPA is not being bad guys. They're doing what they are paid to do. We had an open order. We submitted our corrective actions that we swore under pains and penalties of perjury that we were going to adhere to as part of our permit. We've also got to come up on number 5, a description of additional plans that have been developed on top of the SSES studies, on top of everything else that addresses flow limitations. Now this, for instance, this one here a good example would be our sump pump program that was supposed to be over with in 2011. I believe we just started. We did a mailing, I believe, back in 2008 or 2009. And I've got to make sure we're followed up on that. And if we didn't, we got to explain why, and they're going to hold us accountable. I mean, ladies and gentlemen, whoever's out there in the audience, some of you may or may not have had experience with Mass DEP or the EPA. I unfortunately have spent time with them in federal court for my previous employer. Nothing deliberately done wrong, but we had impacted a neighborhood in Stoughton that forced us to evacuate 7 families by their homes. So you can imagine what that was in court. And it is not pretty. And what they're gonna look, we have to produce, I'm not trying to be a model, we have to produce everything we can. Or I definitely foresee, we're gonna come out, the least we'll come out of this is with a consent order. I'm going to do everything possible to come out of this with a consent order without fines. I think there will be a fines, and they're probably going to be in the 5-figure range. Could be a lot more, but I hope not. Now, number 6 is unauthorized discharges to the sanitary sewer. I had spoken.
Excuse me, Chuck.
Yes.
Chuck, you've been reading off numbers, but we can only see the first page. Do you think that we can see something other than the first page?
Oh, I'm sorry. You're not seeing this scroll with me?
No.
Who's speaking?
Robin.
Yeah, can you hold off 1 minute? Maybe I can get another page up.
Sure.
Hey, guys, I'm really sorry. I thought you were following me on this. Hold on. Come on. Okay, let me see if I can get it again. I'm sorry. You know, for expediency of time tonight, I mean, I'll put it up. Just a copy at Robin's at the office, but again, number 6 is a number 6 is a authorized discharge into the sanitary sewer flow. I spoke with Rick, and Rick, tell me if I'm right or wrong. I believe we've only had one since 2016, 15.
What's that now, Chuck?
Unauthorized discharge into the sewer sanitary.
Yeah, I mean, we basically followed our Mass DEP high flow management plan. And that is, well, actually 2019, but it's what it is. It's called blending. We partially treat the effluent when we don't have any room in our tanks. So the last time it happened was actually 2019.
Okay.
But it's only estimated flow. We
Right.
really no correct way of us, telling you exactly how much we're discharging.
Yeah, see that what that's alluding, that what that Rick is referring to is what we do during high water flow events. Correct me if I'm wrong, Rick, with the Godwin pumps. We basically bypass the influent building to pump them into holding tanks because we can't keep up with it. Well, that was it in a nutshell. That's really all I wanted to say tonight. But what the big thing is, and I don't think you can see unless I hold it up, this is the statement that signs, and it's a statement of certificate for the town of Rockland, under the pain and penalty that you sign it, yada, yada. I understand there are significant penalties for submitting false statements, including the possibility of fines and imprisonment. Well, you can bet your life I'm gonna be as thorough and as meticulous, as honest as I can, because at my age, I'd make a terrible wife in prison. And I couldn't handle myself in there. But that's where we stand now, and that's going to be a very huge undertaking. Now, I have been in contact with the EPA. They're willing to work with us. They realize we have a new superintendent. The holidays are coming up, being Memorial Day and 4th of July, and also it's the municipal end of year. So all he's asked is, I have a previous relationship from that court case, and he has some trust in me, and I have assured him I'll keep him abreast all the way. He's not going to hold my butt to the letter of the 30-day law, but I do not foresee being allowed to go beyond 60 days. But I've got to keep them posted every step of the way. Again, and this is on top of the normal duties, and I've done it, like I said, and it is a full-time job. So with Keith coming on board, I'm gonna take over this and pull together everything I can. But I'm gonna need everyone's help to get data, reach out at data. It's gonna mean some nights in there. I'm not trying to sound like a martyr, but I'm saying for peace and quiet to spread everything out on the conference room table and what have you, and go for that. But that's really all I wanted to do tonight. And the main reason I wanted to reveal this, if you would, is to allow under the open meeting laws for us to talk about it openly amongst ourselves, for Keith and I to talk about it. And it's a public document once it comes. And again, I just didn't want it out there. And people may say, well, why didn't I show it Monday night before where I received it Friday? That was totally my call. We had our hands full with the town meeting. I thought that if this document was released, it would blur the vision or take away from the importance of that meeting. It was not going to add anything to that meeting as far as floodplain or capacity or anything like that. So that's why I withheld it. Don't blame the selectmen or anyone else for that one. That was totally on my call. I received that Friday. And I told everyone involved with this that I didn't want it out. And that's the reason. So with that said, where I want this real quick, if the only other items I have on the meeting tonight before we go into, if anyone has any questions from the public, is I revealed to you the proposed moratorium text. I sent it to the parties involved here. I know I just sent out a slideshow. If anyone wants a copy of the text, let me know. I'll get you a copy of it. It's still really in a drafted stage. It's probably still going to be tweaked some more because I want to get some input from Keith and Dave on developers' involvement in that, because I don't want developers on their own messing with our sewer system. And again, I'm going to also propose some fee increases to be discussed. As far as those go, remember that we had not gone up on our fees for new connections since 2004. We went up last year, and I just want to see what the temperature is for going up again to make them reasonable and to help defray the cost of a future upgrade, because we're going to be going for grants. Let's face it, grants and bonds. And if we go up on user fees, that's only going to hurt the taxpayer more with the new school coming out. And I don't really think we want to do that. I think we should focus on the grants. And if it comes down a year or so from now that we're in that position, then so be it. We're going to have to do it. So Dan, have you got anything you want to add?
No, I'm all set.
Keith?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Dave?
No, I think you covered everything.
I mean, again, people, the whole thing to this is give them everything, but be careful what, I shouldn't say that because they're probably watching. You want to give them everything they request, but you want to make sure what you submit, you thoroughly read and you can justify, and when they call on you, you can explain it. So with that said, if anyone from the public has got any questions regarding that, I'll talk about the RFI and its importance for tonight. I mean, we do have another meeting the 19th. And unfortunately, I'm sorry all these meetings came in this big spurt. This one was unexpected. But there was no way around the others. And I do want to keep it at one a month if possible. So with that, if anyone out in the public has any questions, I'll be glad to answer them. If you do, you're going to have to unmute yourself because I can't unmute you. Well, with that, I'll take it as no questions. Anybody who wants a copy of the rough draft of the proposed moratorium that we'll vote on, request it and I'll see that you get a copy. And again, we'll be discussing that and voting on that the end of the month. We will not be voting on the fee increase till June. And other than that, I guess that's it. Thank you very much for attending.
All right, thank you.
Hey.
You.
Thank you.
Night.
Good night.
Sure.